Justice, peace, and a path to prosperity, I believe that America's best days can still be ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
Well, happy Friday. It's going to be a long day for me. Hopefully you've got a break planned for the weekend, but there's a lot of news to cover. And of course, tonight I will be at the Glen Allen Cultural Arts Center for the Virginia Forum, where Jamie Franklin will be giving the address. You know, this is that young woman. I hope you saw the interview with her. Really impressive young lady who went to the University of California at Berkeley, who's trying to prevent every woman from winding up with, you know, green hair and a nose ring and, you know, baggy clothes, and say, you know, you have a role in this society, and it's expanded over many decades, and people fought really hard to make sure that you could play that role. And it could still include some of the traditional things that women do, like be a good wife and be a mom, and you know, you have a voice in politics, and you should use that. But you can still be a traditional woman, which might be more appealing to a lot of people in the society, especially if you want to get married and have a family. Jamie Franklin joins us at the Virginia Forum tonight. You can get tickets at the virginiacouncil.org. And in our second segment, I'm going to give away a pair of tickets to the VIP reception and to the speech tonight with our email. So hang out for that. But I hope I'll see you in person tonight at the Glen Allen Cultural Arts Center for the Virginia Forum. Check it out, the virginiacouncil.org. Lots to cover. And, you know, the Epstein stuff, I guess that's our top story today. Nationally, internationally, how interesting is it that the Epstein story has bubbled to a head now that we've headed into year two of the Trump administration? I mean, this guy, I mean, it's not like he was a nobody. You know, sometimes you find out, like a serial killer. Wow, we didn't know. Nobody knew. There was no hint that there was a problem. He seemed like such a nice husband, or, you know, he kept to himself. That's that, right? That's what you hear when you hear about somebody being a serial killer or a murderer. Like, we had no idea. Is anybody saying that about this guy? So it's just bizarre to me that we went through the 4 years of Joe Biden being president after Trump the first time, where Democrats did everything they could. I mean, objectively, come on, honestly. Even if you're a Democrat, thank you for watching the show if you're a Democrat. Wouldn't you agree that your party did everything they possibly could to try to harm, disqualify, jail, get rid of Donald Trump as a political factor in America? I mean, come on. I think that's an honest statement. So if you were aware of Epstein, again, he wasn't an unknown entity. Everybody knew about him. We saw that really weird picture painting of Bill Clinton on the inside of his wall in his Manhattan townhouse that's crazy expensive, of Bill Clinton laying on a chair in high heels and a dress. I will tell you right now, and I'm a gay guy. If one of my friends did something like that, and someone said, "John, you wouldn't believe what this person has hung on their wall," I'd be up in there like, "You get that damn thing off the wall, and how dare you demean me or insult me or act like you've got, you know, something to hold over me." I mean, that's weird to me. I guess my point is, this is all we knew, that there was something really freaky and bizarre about this guy. And the rumors have been swirling around for years. So what is it? What has happened? Is this an example of the power of the media, that suddenly the media can collectively shift focus and shift the spotlight onto one person or to one issue, and the vast majority of the American public will, you know, like a cat with a laser pointer, they'll follow it wherever it goes. I mean, you know, once you get that laser pointer in front of the cat, other than food showing up or a German Shepherd arriving in the room, you're not going to get the cat to look at anything other than that laser pointer. I feel like that's what we're dealing with here. And it's been successfully exploited to try to continue to do harm with Trump, even with the stories. And I think they're verified. I don't think this is a made up cover story. The stories that Trump was one of the few people in that circle of really, really rich movers and shakers, and I guess partiers, people who have. I don't. If you've lived in New York and you've lived in Washington, I've never been a money person, but I've been around people who have fancy parties and the caviar is out and it's open bar and everybody's sloshed and everybody's blitzed. And if you're the sober person, which often I was, you kind of look and go, "What in the hell is going on here?" Um, Now, I'm not going to tell you that I was the sober person every time. I never want to misrepresent and have you think that I'm some little angel because I'm not. I'm not trying to peddle that to you. But I've been in situations where I'm like, "Ooh, I got to get out of this room. This is turning into this. This doesn't match up with what I want to do with my night, and there are consequences to this." So that was the crowd, and there's still people like that. There's a different generation of party people who have money who just burn through the cash. Sometime I don't have time to do it today, but I will tell you, when I lived in Manhattan, a very, very, very crazy wealthy friend of mine who was connected to one of the royal families in the Middle East had an apartment in Manhattan. And I don't know, I'm trying to remember what night it was. I don't think it was a Monday night. I don't think it was that benign. Maybe like a Wednesday or Thursday. Everybody in Virginia is going to church on Wednesday, but up in Manhattan, they had the billionaires party. And the guy called me and said, "Oh, John, would you like to go to the billionaires party?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not a billionaire. That sounds intriguing. What is it?" "Oh, I can't tell you this." And I'm thinking, all right, this is another one. I've done this a couple of times in my life where the voice in my head is saying, "Don't go, don't do this." But then I'm curious. And then the way I've survived it is I haven't been one of the drinkers and I don't do drugs, so that hadn't been a problem for me. But I've had with my wits about me to uh, escape if need be, or at least I've convinced myself I could escape. So anyway, he takes me to this place. It's over near the plaza. I don't know if it's still there or not. And it looks like a normal restaurant. And you walk through the restaurant and you walk through the kitchen of the restaurant in Manhattan and you walk through the double doors and there is a huge warehouse room with that sound insulation that you put on the walls if you're doing a studio, or I mean maybe if you live in a noisy apartment complex. The walls were covered with that, but it had a disco ball, and I mean it was jam packed with hundreds of people, all of them dressed to the nines. I mean, the women were dressed like great. The guys all had on, Armani suits, and I looked like the vagabond off the street with my, you know, local Richmond suit that wasn't tailored directly for me. I mean, these people had money and they were having a party, and I guess they had it every week or once a month or something. Well, needless to say, I didn't really fit in. I did the best I could to look like I fit in, but I didn't fit in. But there's that whole world that most of us never see. Um, that if you've got enough money and you convince yourself that you can get away with anything, I think bad things start to happen. I mean, maybe it's fun 9 times out of 10, maybe it's just a fun party, but then the 10th time, there's somebody there who isn't a nice guy and who thinks that their money will buy them out of any issue they get into, so they don't have a problem doing something that's wrong. And I get the impression that that was the world that Epstein and maybe Trump um, and a bunch of their friends were involved in. Really, really wealthy, sometimes very famous people who just think they can get away with anything. I also have to tell you, I think Trump has demonstrated um, through several actions he's taken and things he has not done that tell me he's not the evil person that so many people try to make him out to be. Like if he were an evil guy, that fat lawyer of his, that dumb, stupid guy who was his lawyer, I forget the guy's name, who turned on him, right? I mean, he was out there making very bad, unconvincing arguments on behalf of Trump at the beginning of this whole adventure, and then he turned on Trump. If Trump was really a mafioso street thug, that guy would have kept his mouth shut or would have gone into witness protection because he would have known, oh, if I cross the boss, uh, just like with the mob, I'll wind up in the back of a car in the bottom of the river in New York or in a concrete block on one of the construction projects. I mean, that's not just a movie situation. Those things really happen if you're dealing with bad people who have no moral compass and no rules, and there's no line they won't cross to protect themselves and what they want. And I watched that. I was like, oh, holy cow, we're going to see right now whether Trump's a bad guy or not. And the fact that that lawyer, A, he instinctively knew I can get away with this because Trump's not going to kill me. That's telling. And then the stories, which I believe have been verified, that say that Trump was the person who said, "Yeah, Epstein's too much. His behavior's terrible, and this Maxwell woman is watch her. She's evil." I mean, I don't think that's made up. You always got to, like I said yesterday, you got to second guess everything these days because you're just not sure if you're being told the truth. But I don't think that's made up. I think that's real. Those stories seem to be verifiable, and verified. So, you know, Trump's in that mix with these rich people, but here we are all these years later, and 4 years after Biden gets elected, and suddenly we're obsessed with Epstein. And the Democrats, if I were a Democrat, I wouldn't want to be talking about this because every time they open a new box of documents, quite frankly, it seems to indict other Democrats. I mean, I haven't seen anything that makes me say, oh my gosh, Trump is awful. I'm not seeing that. I mean, if you're not into that scene or that debauchery scene, you might look askance at it and be like, oh, we don't approve. I get it. I don't blame you for that. But I mean, this seems like a losing battle for Democrats. It keeps kind of exposing them for collaboration with somebody who is horrible. And I don't think that's made up. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm the kind of guy, after what I've witnessed in my life, when everybody else is piling on someone and saying they're evil, I usually step back and go, no, wait a minute. Are they really evil? Is this true? Or have we found somebody we're going to try to destroy today? And I don't like that. I don't like that attitude. If you're a bad guy, okay, we can label you a bad guy, but we got to prove it. And it seems like the Epstein crowd, and he personally, bad guy. So anyway, let's share with you some of what happened yesterday, where Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, the wife of Bill Clinton, that's the real connection here, right? Is asked questions about Ms. Maxwell and about Epstein. Producer name.
Good evening. Well, I have just finished testifying. I answered every one of their questions as fully as I could, based on what I knew, and what I knew is what I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication
Can that
with
be
him.
true?
I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance, but whatever they asked me, I did my very best to respond. It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself. We had asked for that. We think it would have been better for the committee and its efforts to gather whatever information they are seeking.
All right, I want you to write this down. We may have come up with the one thing that I'm going to agree with Hillary Clinton on, is that if you're going to have these types of hearings, especially with a high profile person, I mean, you're not going to protect, Hillary is a public figure. whether she likes it or not, that's just the truth. And if she wanted to do this in public, I mean, granted, she's got a PR machine behind her, and the Democrats will all rally behind her, obviously, no matter what she does. But I would think that you would have these hearings in private to protect people who didn't ask to be in the public arena and just got kind of sucked up into something that may have been nefarious, and you're trying to get information, but you don't want to destroy their life. Hillary's out there anyway. So I actually kind of agree with her. I think we probably should have seen this. I would have been curious to see the engagement. Then you can also, I mean, in all fairness, you can gauge whether the people who are asking the question are asking fair questions, or whether they're leading questions, or whether they're designed to embarrass the person or catch them. So, I mean, hold on. I don't know that in 20 years I've found anything I really agree with her on, but maybe, maybe in this case, I would agree. It seems not believable that she wouldn't have met him, but then I don't know. I mean, there are people that are big in Republican circles here in Virginia who I have never, um, I mean, I don't think I've shaken hands with them or taken a picture with them, and yet they're a big deal in Republican circles. So could that happen on a huge scale, like Hillary Clinton, the former first lady and the Secretary of State? I suppose so. And then you're left at the end of this thing like, what was the point? What are we getting to here? So we'll see what Bill Clinton has to say. Um, I I mean, I don't think Bill Clinton will have the ability, whether it's true or not, to say that he doesn't have a connection to Epstein, right? Um, he'll claim that the connection was about raising money for charities. And I mean, isn't that what some of the other people have said? Is that Epstein had a lot of wealthy friends, so you wanted to be around him because you could probably get money for your charities and for your projects. Yeah, I get it. I get it. As somebody who's involved in a couple of nonprofits and on the boards of a couple of things, like I understand you want to try to fundraise, but if you find yourself on a private plane on the way out to an island where there's 3 or 4 days of hedonistic, debaucherous, don't tell anybody back at home stuff, and you're a big public figure, I mean, anybody, but especially a big public figure, and you keep going back, that's not about, I got news for you, that's not about fundraising for your charity. Maybe once, maybe you were enamored by the idea and thought that would be a great way to raise money. And then when you got there, you're like, ooh. And then when you get home, you promise yourself, I'm never doing that again. Right. It didn't sound like that was the deal with Bill Clinton. And I still come back to there's a reason that Epstein had that painting of Bill Clinton, not hidden in the attic or something, not some weird pervert thing, but on the wall of his office where people would see it. That seems so disrespectful and kind of implies, and I have to check myself, I'm making an assumption here. It kind of implies to me that he is saying, I got you, I own you, I know what you did, and I am going to manipulate it. And that happens in DC a lot. A lot. You got to be careful. If you live in Washington, I guess to a certain extent in Richmond, any state capital where there's power on the line and money on the line, you got to be careful who you go out drinking with. You got to be careful who you go on vacation with, who you spend the weekend with. These people, the people who are seeking power, it's a lot more like these crazy TV shows, like Scandal, the TV show, than you could ever imagine. I went to DC and thought it would be like the West Wing. Honestly, that's, I hate to say I was naive, but that was, oh my goodness, it's going to be every day. There's the Capitol, and I'm going to be inspired to be, it's going to bring out the best in me and everyone around me, and we're going to serve America, and that's the motivation to. And then, honestly, at the end of 3 or 4 years, I was like, oh wow, there are people here who are like that, and I'd like to get to know them, but there's trouble, and the Epstein thing. Not just in its time, but now all these years after his death and after the players that we're talking about were engaged with him, we're still talking about it for political reasons. Because I don't get the impression that any of those DC people really want to shut down whatever bad behavior was going on. And maybe Trump does, because he's returned all these kids who were lost during the uh, ICE issues. That, I think, is an achievement, and that's another reason I don't think Donald Trump's the bad guy that so many people make him out to be. No, I don't think he's pure as the driven snow, but I don't think he's the bad guy. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk to one of the reporters who's been covering a lot of this stuff for the Epoch Times, Nathan Worcester. He's with us in just a couple of moments. Stay with us on the Reid Revolution. All right, real quick. My guest is waiting, and I don't want to keep him holding any longer because he was kind enough to jump on early, which most people don't do. If you want tickets to join me for the Virginia Forum tonight, here's the way you get 2 free tickets for the first person to email us at thereidrevolution@gmail.com. Put tickets in the headline and the subject line, and if you're the first person who emails us now, I'll give you 2 tickets. You can go to the VIP reception and hear Jamie Franklin tonight at the Virginia Forum. The VIP reception starts right about 5:45, 6 o'clock, and the speech is at 7. We will be done by 9, so you're not going to be out all night on this Friday evening. Jamie Franklin at the Virginia Forum. Nathan Worcester is with the Epoch Times newspaper. We talked to him several times when I was back at the radio station, and he is with us now. You heard what I was saying, Nathan. I appreciate you jumping on early. You have any instinct or objective analysis of what's been happening here with this case in particular?
You know, it's interesting. I have not been tracking the Epstein developments as closely as some. I will say that from what we know of Hillary's closed-door testimony, it does seem as though she consistently said that her husband, former President Bill Clinton, is the person who can provide answers. And that even apparently applies to questions relating to Epstein and the Clinton Global Initiative, which to me at least, it's interesting that apparently, according to her, he was the only liaison for whatever relationship may have existed there.
I mean, did she throw her own husband under the bus? It's not my business what their relationship is. And I know a lot of people who are kind of they've been married for years and it's too complicated to get out of it, so they're together. And I really don't know what the deal is, and it's not my business. But do you think she threw him under the bus? That's what it sounded like to me as an observer.
Well, it's either that or maybe in the closed-door testimony with Bill Clinton in front of Jamie Comer and the other Republicans and Democrats, maybe there's some strategy that we will see play out when he speaks. But certainly doesn't look like a vote of confidence exactly coming off of this specific hearing.
Yeah. Boy, I almost feel bad for them. And then I realize that I think they've really been involved in some shady stuff because it's just never, since I was in college, these people have been going through it. What was it, Whitewater or whatever? It's just been nonstop scandal.
Whitewater, Flowers, Jennifer Flowers, obviously Monica Lewinsky. I think there's a sense in which, maybe we have an inclination to be a little salacious, and that can be a bad thing. And yet at the same time, when these allegations bear on people with a considerable amount of power, and those things, if true, can bear on their ability to remain, I suppose, neutral. And, as you were saying earlier, in DC, people, when they have leverage over you, they often will seek to use it. It is not a town of the most morally pure people always.
Right.
I think
you
it's
got to be careful. You and I, if we had sex with the intern under the desk at the office, you and I would be gone. Let's be clear. So, all these people are like, oh, we're not going to judge Bill Clinton. Yeah, he's the president, but that's indicative of a mindset, I think, if you do that and you just figure that it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know what your home life is. And again, it's not my business, but you and I would not get a pass on that in our work environment if we did something crazy like that.
And where this also might bear on the legal side of things is, as I recall from the Lewinsky scandal, there was perjury that led to the impeachment, or at
Yes.
least alleged perjury. So sort of a faint echo of the late 1990s here that we're going to see play out in D.C. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
What does he say? What does he decline to say? Certainly do not want to insinuate that he is going to perjure himself, but that is the sort of thing that I think people are going to keep in mind. The fact that the Clintons have a long history in Washington, D.C., and the connection to Epstein, the connection to Epstein's Island, to the extent that we have evidence of that, that's not a new theme. That's not coming out of nowhere.
Right. And once you've lied to me once, I'm gonna double and triple check if we're talking again. That's right. Well, listen, Nathan, I know you've been covering the partial government shutdown. Now, it's weird because when I was running for lieutenant governor last year, man, that shutdown of the entire federal government was a real problem towards the end of the campaign. And I'll just say it, I think the Democrats did that deliberately to try to seal the deal with their voters, make them mad, hate Trump, hate Republicans, and go vote against any of us with an R behind our name. This one hasn't gotten the same level of attention. It's not a full government shutdown. Who is actually impacted here? And what are we hearing in D.C.? Because it's not resonating across the rest of the country in the same way.
No, I mean, this is just the Department of Homeland Security, which is a pretty small percentage of the federal budget, something on the order of 4%, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's ICE, it's Border Patrol, but they have considerable money from last year's big tax bill, the one big beautiful bill. Aside from that, you have FEMA, you have the TSA. And so my perception, and this is what I'm hearing on the ground in Washington, once people start missing paychecks, once this starts to affect things like staffing, and I think especially if we have a major disaster, praying that it doesn't happen, but this is the time of year when that can take place. Maybe if there is somehow perception that FEMA is not responding the way it should, yeah, I think that would drive people to a resolution. The most interesting thing that I've heard recently was from Mike Rounds after leaving a Senate luncheon. He told me and other reporters that, well, this is going to come down to negotiations, to talks between Senate Democratic leadership and President Trump. So big contrast there with last year with that shutdown where President Trump really drew a line in the sand, did not want to talk to the Democrats. And we had an historically long shutdown. We had both sides, I think, seeking to kind of own the fact that they were saying the other side was responsible. I do agree with you. It's interesting, the timing. You look at that time of the year. One thing, I'll put it to you. I spoke to Tom Cole, who's the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, about at the end of September of this year, do you think that given the interest the Democrats have in winning the midterms, they would also be willing then to drive things to a shutdown? And he was optimistic, suggesting that I think neither side really would want to see that happen, that we would come to some sort of continuing resolution instead, which might not be satisfying to fiscal conservatives, but at the very least it would be something other than a shutdown. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen such sustained pressure from the Democrats' base to get them to do things like this, to shut down the government. So I wonder, I mean, do you think we could come to that in September, or do you think we're not necessarily looking at
I think
something?
so, not because it's good or not because it makes sense, but because it seems to play 5 out of 6 times it plays in favor of the Democrats when you calculate in the way it's covered by mainstream press. It just, the Republicans are cast as the bad guys, regardless of whether they're in the White House or out of the White House, whatever their status is, it seems to play against Republicans. And I think they have found a tool that, with their accomplices in the media, present company excluded, seems to play well for them. But I keep hoping that the American public, even people who are Democrats, and maybe you hate Donald Trump, I'm not going to argue with you. If you hate Donald Trump, okay. I mean, at some point, don't you say this is not the way to govern? And we're going to hold everybody accountable for it, especially when the Democrats are out there saying, in this particular case, we're shutting this down because we're going to demand that you stop enforcing federal law. And you're going to do it a different way by leaving us alone in our blue cities. Am I being fair by characterizing the demands that way? Isn't that the shorthand for what they're saying?
Well, I think there's obvious political opportunism here. Worth noting
Hmm.
that the appropriations bill with DHS, they even broke it out separately in the House to pass it, but it did pass the House, and it only became an issue in the Senate
Hmm.
after in Minnesota you had the shooting of Alex Preddy. But I think there was that sense that we have an opportunity here to make this an issue.
Yeah.
And of course, some other bills ended up being caught up in that. They were passed separately. Ultimately, we did even have a larger partial government shutdown very briefly as a result of as a result of that standoff. And so I think when it comes to the blame game here, I think on this shutdown, the previous shutdown, to a large extent, it has been a set of demands from the Democrats that they are hoping Republicans will meet. Certainly, you look at what I think even Rosa DeLauro, she's the ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee, what a lot of other people were saying about these bills before they were passed on the Democratic side. A lot of Republicans would look at what ultimately went into that, even the version that Democrats are now refusing. They'd say this is effectively a compromise. This is
Hmm.
effectively through things like funding for body cameras, um, closer significantly to what Democrats have demanded. And yet it does still come because I think there's political advantage to be had for the Democrats to this partial shutdown, which, as you say, it's not anything like last year. We're not having the same conversations about military missing their paychecks. We're not having the same, I think, both a sense of intensity and also that one of my big memories from DC is early in that shutdown, speaking to Republicans in particular, but also Democrats. Both sides were dug in. They were interested in driving this as long as they could. So,
Hmm.
is it possible we could see another very long partial shutdown? I suppose so. I'm not seeing a lot of progress.
And what do they want now? The body cams. Listen, if I were a Republican in Congress, I would say, yeah, heck yeah, let's get those body cams on you because honestly, the more video that people see of these outrageous, horrible, vulgar engagements with citizens who have Trump derangement syndrome, I think the better it is for law enforcement. It vindicates the law enforcement, I think,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah. I
makes
mean,
me feel more comfortable.
we saw something similar, I think, with the mass rollout in a lot of local police departments of body cameras, which was an issue that was being pushed to a large extent by Democrats. But, I think when people saw that in many cases, they came away with more appreciation for the challenges that police officers deal with
Yeah.
in many of these contested interactions.
Like, what would you do if
When
this happened to you? And the average person goes, yeah, I might pull out pepper spray or shoot them or arrest them. What are you supposed to do? It's not a perfect world, and you're dealing with screwed up people who are angry or high or mentally ill. The average
you'll
person puts themselves in the cop's shoes and go, well, this is a bad situation, but they did
yeah.
what they had to do to survive.
And I think there's this strange thing that happens across the country. Anytime there's a high profile shooting involving law enforcement, we all become experts on these split second decisions,
Right.
analyzing
Oh
each
yeah.
frame of a camera shot. And there's a sense in which I always want to say, well, let's let it. I think it is good to err on the side of waiting for all the evidence to come in
Hmm.
and for the people who are not police officers or not, involved in the legal process, determining the outcome of these things to just reserve their judgment to some extent. Although I understand everybody wants to react, everybody wants to have a take immediately. Now, you were mentioning the DHS issues, the things that are really separating Republicans from Democrats. Body cameras, that's not one of those issues. One of the
Okay.
biggest ones is this push for judicial warrants for ICE to be able to act and apprehend people who are illegally present in the country. And this is one of those issues. It's a little arcane, but effectively, if the immigration law enforcement cannot act on administrative warrants, that would shut down a lot of the activity that they're doing. That would be essentially a way of pressing the brakes on the Trump agenda on deportations of
Hmm.
people illegally present in the country. So,
But what
that's
does the
that's one way.
law say? They don't have to do that. ICE is not obligated because the if what I have been exposed to is true, the deportation order itself acts as the warrant that allows them to detain the person and to begin the deportation process because there's an order that's out there. I don't get the impression, you tell me if I'm wrong, Nathan, with your reporting, that ICE is randomly going to the construction site across the street from where I live and just stopping everybody and then throwing people in the truck because they don't have their wallet on them that day. And then the next thing you know, that person pops up in Guatemala. And the Democrats seem to be sharing that narrative, which I think would be alarming to a normal, reasonable person. But I don't think that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's a crucial aspect that you've hit on, the fact that these administrative warrants, when they're carried out with that final order of removal, I believe the courts have generally upheld, I think even appellate courts, that yes, this is constitutional, this is reasonable. And I think a lot of people learning, okay, not only are these in many cases criminals, violent criminals, but they're people who have that order of final removal out there for them. The execution of these warrants, the moves by immigration law enforcement, that does not seem to be so close to that narrative that we're hearing. Yeah, I can't speak to every single case that ICE has been involved in, but I think in general, that's what we're looking at. And so the general response that we're seeing, the demand that we're seeing from Democrats, that's something that I think Republicans would find a very hard time abiding that as a policy option.
So does that just leave us at an impasse for months here? And then, you know what I thought was really going to trigger everybody to freak out was that momentary announcement that TSA pre-check was going to be suspended. And, you know, my friends in D.C. who paid money, who fly all week long back and forth, I thought, wow, they're going to be on the phone with their former boss in the Senate, raising hell about that. And then, of course, within 24 hours, they went back to like, hey, we're not going to do away with pre-check. But at some point, we've got to end this standoff.
You know, I've joked that a senator is going to miss a flight and something's going to happen, but I think you're right. Unfortunately, it's, you know, oh no, the lines are really long at Reagan Airport or something of that sort, which is a shame for a lot of just Americans who, you know, having been in the swamp, as they say, I'm aware of exactly what you've been talking about. It's kind of distressing, but that's probably not. I wouldn't rule that out as a factor in terms of what actually brings us to a resolution. But it could also come down to if constituents start to see the effects in TSA lines, if people are not showing up to work, and that's even, you know, elsewhere in the country and elsewhere in Virginia, Texas, California, wherever. You know, I would say that hopefully the opinion that people are getting will drive lawmakers in a good direction on this. But yeah, for now, not a lot of optimism on a short-term resolution.
No kidding. Nathan Worcester with the Epoch Times. Listen, I'm so glad I get to have you on the podcast. I always enjoyed talking to you on the radio, and I do find you to be, you know, tracking your work regularly. I find you to be one of the thoughtful people that's not got an axe to grind out there. You know, give me the facts, and I can deal with the facts if you just give me that. Nathan, I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the founder and president of Legal Insurrection Foundation, Bill Jacobson, joins us. We'll talk and get his take on what's happening across the country and the lawfare, which is very real in America, when we return on the Reid Revolution. Now, I get these emails from Bill Jacobson about the Legal Insurrection Foundation. It's kind of an interesting logo. It's this yellow logo, and I always see it and think, oh, it's like an adventure travel company. And then I go, oh, no, it's not. This is serious stuff. So that's interesting marketing when you can get people to pay attention because they think you're going in a different direction, and then you still get to make the case here. You know, their theme at Legal Insurrection Foundation is liberty, equality, and family. Bill Jacobson is the founder and president there. He joins us this morning. Bill, I appreciate you taking time to join us. What is making it on your radar right now? It's different when you've got a Republican president. You got to kind of thread that needle. But the Democrats are still using lawfare to get their way state after state. What's hitting your radar?
Yeah, well, we really haven't changed depending what administration it is. So our website, the political website, has been around since 2008. So we've been through numerous cycles.
Right.
The foundation is only 7 years old. So we have a bit of a split personality. On the blog side, the website side, we just continue to follow, what's happening, follow different legal cases. That's kind of how we got a name for ourselves. The Zimmerman case, if people can remember that long ago, the Gibson's Bakery case, all those sort of things, and also politics. On the foundation side, we have a project called Equal Protection Project, which brings legal challenges to uh, discrimination done in the name of DEI. That's equalprotect.org. And we've challenged over 275 universities and colleges. So that occupies a lot of our time. So I think we're probably less focused on the shifting politics than we are the cultural fight, because all these things really get down to a cultural fight.
Yeah, you got to watch the wave, though, and catch the wave, both from a financial standpoint to fund your operation and to galvanize the support of the public and make sure that they're behind you and that they know what's happening in DC. Tell me one of the things that's really pressing at the moment.
Well, again, I think it's the battle over diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory. This is a fight we've been fighting for 5, 6, 7 years, almost full time.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. What's the direction going to be? Are the changes that the Trump administration is making or attempting to make going to be long lasting, or are they going to get washed away in the next political cycle? And
Well,
so
you
that's
saw
really
this
what
with
we're
Governor Youngkin here in Virginia. He came in and made some changes. He appointed people to different boards, to the Board of Virginia Military Institute and to the University of Virginia, and a couple of other schools, to try to say, hey, take your foot off the gas on this DEI stuff. Let's make decisions about who's admitted to the school and who advances in the school, who's hired at the school, not based on race alone, but objectively who can do a good job at the school. And let's make sure that diversity of thought is a part of this, not just skin color or religion or ethnicity. And man, they beat the heck out of him. And in the end, I hate to say this, because I think Glenn Youngkin tried, but in Virginia, one election, and it looks like everything Glenn Youngkin did is being deliberately dismantled right now, and the Democrats are back with extra fervor, reinstalling DEI on these school campuses.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen at the national level. I think Virginia, I'm not from Virginia, but I can read the newspapers and I can watch TV. Virginia is really a harbinger of what could happen nationally if the Democrats win in 2028.
Why do you think they're so committed to this concept? I mean, I always try to step back, and you can get caught up in the politics and say, oh, evil people and they're horrible people. I try to think, okay, let's assume they're not evil people and they're not horrible people. What is the motivation? Because surely it can't be the concept of fairness, which I would buy into, because this is blatantly unfair to people.
Yeah, well, I think they look at our country as fundamentally flawed. They look at our country as fundamentally illegitimate. And therefore, they just have a completely different world outlook. That's why you see the proliferation of, various programs and various statements. I forget what they're called, but land acknowledgments, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Where basically they have taught multiple generations now of students, beginning in kindergarten up through university, that we are a fundamentally illegitimate country and that we're fundamentally broken. And that's unfortunately taken hold. So you and I look at the country and say we're fundamentally good. How can we make it better? They look at the country and say it's fundamentally bad. How can we tear it down? And it's just a complete two worldviews. And I don't know where there's a middle point when your outlook is that we're uniquely bad in world history. I mean, and slavery is a perfect example. Nobody's defending slavery, but we weren't the only country that had it. It still exists in places in the Arab world. You never hear about that.
Yeah.
So when you've raised generations to think that we were uniquely evil hundreds of years ago when it came to slavery, without talking about how pervasive slavery was at the time throughout the world, okay? And when they portray it as something related to Christianity, when in fact it's in the Muslim world where it was most pervasive, you create a completely distorted view. And I think that, what people don't understand is the fight over education is not over education. It's over our country. It's over whether we survive as a
Right.
country. What would you do differently if you wanted to destroy the country than what they have done to education?
Yeah. And there's never a moment where the students are taught of the evils of slavery, and they pause and say, but you should be proud that you're a part of the civilization and the nation and uh, uh, the culture that did away with this. And so that you didn't commit this crime, you didn't participate in it, but you're the beneficiary of the hard work of other people. You should be proud of that and continue to live a happy and prosperous life and be fair to other people in the country. Instead, the message is you should flagellate yourself, you should step aside and let other people rule you, and you have some sort of penance to pay for something that you didn't do. I think that's very damaging psychologically, and I see culturally how it's bringing down city after city after city and family after family after family, and eventually the society collapses on itself.
And that's the goal. I mean, the goal is
Yeah.
to deconstruct. Deconstruct is a word that used to be used a lot more in the past than it is in recent years. But that is their view of deconstructing things, is tearing them apart and then perhaps putting them back together the way you want. And that's really what's going on. So this is a national emergency. I mean, people need to understand that, and I don't blame the younger people because it's how they're raised. I blame the people who raised them. I'm a good example that when I went to law school in the early 1980s, the most radical students, and they weren't as many as there are now, but the most radical anti-American law students went into academia.
Right.
And the other people went into law and business and government. And we handed our kids to these people for 30 years, and we were asleep at the wheel. And then they come out 30 years later, and you're wondering why they've got these viewpoints. Well, have you looked at what's being taught in the public schools? Have you looked at what's being taught in universities? It's uniformly. I mean, I teach at a university. I run a website and a foundation, but I'm actually my day job, I like to
Hmm.
joke, my day job is a law professor at Cornell Law School. And so I understand how lopsided it is, how it is a monoculture of leftism. Some of it is just traditional American liberalism, but a lot of it is extreme leftism, is far leftism, is anti-Americanism. And that's the pervasive culture. It's a monoculture. And it's not just at Cornell, it's at all or close to all of the so-called
Yeah.
elite universities. And it may not be everywhere, but it's certainly at the universities that tend to produce the people who go into journalism, who go into
Right.
government, who, rise through the ranks of corporations. And that's the culture we have. And people need to understand this is a fight for the country. It's not a fight over what's taught in a particular classroom.
Right. Now, the president and his team, who had 4 years between battling their own legal battles to plan for this second term, they seem to have reached the conclusion that the only way to successfully push this back in the short term, and maybe if they're lucky in the long term, is the power of the purse. To tell these universities, look, this is what the law says, when it comes to fairness for women and non-discrimination statutes that theoretically we all agree on, and you are violating that. We're going to rule that you're violating that, and if you don't change your attitude, we're cutting off your funding. Now, the Democrats scream and yell. These are the same people who use that same leverage, financial leverage, when it comes to mandatory seatbelts and drive 55 versus drive 65. And they have perfected the ability to use that money to get what they want, to force their way into public policy, state by state, county by county, and now they're mad that Trump and his team are doing it. Is that going to work in the short term? And then the assessment of where we are in 10 years when Trump is no longer around anymore.
Yeah, I think the administration needs to focus on how they can make some of these changes permanent or at least longer lasting. They didn't do a very good job, Trump 1.0, at that. Biden came in and within a day, kind of like happened in Virginia, within a day or two, wiped out everything. They're now in the process, and it's time consuming, of doing rulemaking. And it's not quite as strong as having it in legislation, but it's the next best thing because you can't just wipe away a rule with an executive order. So I think that's what the Trump administration needs to focus on. I think they are beginning to focus on that. I think they understand the legacy because.
But Bill, why? I mean, you've been around these DC types. Why is it that we got to beg, barter, and plead for our own people when we have the House and the Senate, not 60 votes? I worked in the Senate. I know that is a real number if you want it to be. And the White House. I'm so frustrated that we're going to hit November of this year and probably lose control of the House of Representatives. And this miraculous window where things could have been codified with the signature of a president is going to be lost. And I don't blame people for being throwing their hands up and saying, I'm tired of this.
I agree 100%. It's really baffling. There was an unbelievable victory in November 2024. There was a real opportunity, a window, as you say, of opportunity, which may partially shut next November. We don't know, but that's probably likely. And they've wasted it. Okay, now the executive branch hasn't wasted, but what has the Congress done? What have the Republicans in the Senate done? This is an extreme frustration that we all feel, which is that we handed you the opportunity and you blew it. You've done nothing. And so recognizing
it's the second time.
Yeah.
Same thing with the first time Trump was elected. I truly went to church and said, wow, God, somehow this election has worked out for us to have this authority, and we need to use it appropriately to save the country. And as the months went by in the first term, that first 2 years of the first term, I just kept thinking, wait a minute, why am I crazy? Am I the one who thinks there's an imperative and a clock ticking here and I'm wrong? Or are these other people just so distracted, or they're too timid and they don't want to upset people in D.C.? I mean, at this stage, Bill, I want to upset people in D.C. I want them to know that most Americans are not on board with the direction that they're going. And I'm not going to riot in the streets like Democrats do, but I will encourage people who have authority to codify this stuff so that we're not constantly fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, and I think the Republican leadership is going to be in for a shock. People are not going to show up, and that's the problem. And motivation in a midterm election is everything, and I don't think that they're going to show up, and that's going to be a problem. I hope Republicans hold the House. Unlikely, it seems, but you never know. Hopefully we don't also lose the Senate. That's unlikely we'll lose the Senate, but not impossible, because then we don't get judges through. And God forbid we need to replace a Supreme Court justice. If we don't have the Senate, forget it.
Yeah. Bill Jacobson is with Legal Insurrection Foundation, the founder and the president, and I appreciate the chance to talk to you. Thanks, Bill.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. I don't want to keep beating this horse because I'm not interested in being a downer on people. But, if I was in D.C., and you remember last year, I picked up the phone a couple of times and talked to people in Washington, like, what is going on with you guys? How come you're giving up on Virginia? There are only 2 states having elections, and you don't give a damn what the headlines say. You've got a choice on the morning after the election. And it's not going to be about John Reid. It's really not even going to be about Winsome Sears or Jason Miyares or Abigail Spanberger. It's going to be about Trump And as I predicted, the wipeout in Virginia was characterized by the national media as a total rebuke of Trump. And those things begin to have an effect on whether you can get anything done, and they have a humiliating effect on your base, on your core constituency. When they have voted for you, which is the first thing, probably the easiest thing you can do, go vote for you. When they've given money, when they've donated to your campaign, time and money, and then maybe more importantly in the modern era, God, if you're still a Trump person right now, think of the sacrifices, probably personally, that you have made since he first became president. You probably are not invited to the same Christmas parties. You probably have lost some friends. And I think everybody has lost some friends over it. I certainly have. A lot of my friends refuse to speak to me, and I'm not mad at them that they hate Trump, but they are mad at me that I have been supportive of Trump. And then I ask them, so who's the open-minded person here? Who's the real friend if I'm not cutting you off, but you are cutting me off? They don't have an answer for that, but they have not softened all of these years. Some people have lost family connections over this stuff, which, there's always an argument at the Thanksgiving table between people who have different opinions. Okay, maybe it's heated. Maybe people don't talk to each other for a couple of weeks, but this is a different dividing line than we've seen in the past. And if you personally, just the average guy who really didn't plan on being involved in politics, is dealing with this, and then at the end of the 2-year period where you were told, oh, wow, if we win the House and the Senate and Trump's president, we're really going to get some things done. And then you look and the big, beautiful bill, most people can't tell you what was in the big, beautiful bill, even tax cuts and what else. I mean, most people can't articulate anything in it. So cool name, got a lot of attention, but a few months later, nobody can dissect it. I think there's a problem here where the base will be humiliated. And all I can do is say you got to stay in the fight. I can't tell you not to be humiliated because I feel that way. I am very, very frustrated. Now, I worked in D.C. in the Senate, and I know how tough it is to get anything through. But I would have approached this, and I did when I was on the radio, and I have in my public pronouncements. This is not a normal period of time. I think we're deciding whether we're going to have a civil war or not. Right now, we're making that decision. We're deciding whether we're going to be a free country, a people with free speech, a people that are not constantly worried about an Islamic takeover for the radicals that are out there, who I think there's no doubt that is part of their plan. And that's not everybody, just to be fair, it's not everybody, but there is a movement out there that we are being very foolish ignoring, that's going to change the culture in city after city after city. And I guess the last people it will hit will be in Salt Lake City and North Dakota and South Dakota. But you're going to see a change in Virginia if we don't get a hold of what our principles are as a society and tell people who are here, regardless of what their religion is, these are the principles. You're on board with this, you can stay. You're not on board with this, you got to go. There are lots of other countries that have Sharia law as the standard, and if you want to live under that, you're going to go to another country, because that is not the fundamental of that's not the fundamental belief system of a free society. And we are a free society. And Americans have never really had to grapple with this in a contemporary sense. We did grapple with it, and we reached the right conclusion about being decent and fair and treating people with equality when it came to women and minorities, black men and women who were abused. I'm not covering that up. I'm not ignoring that. I think we've got a pretty good track record here of doing the right thing. And for some reason, we've hit a road bump where the population is confused about who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. We are the good guys. America and Western civilization, we're the good guys. And, if you've been fortunate enough to just kind of live a sheltered life here and you're confused about that, I really hope with the benefit of the internet, you will check out what's happening in other parts of the world, because nothing that we've seen here rivals the atrocities and the slaughter and the oppression that other people are still trying to get out from in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia, and quite frankly, in some parts of Europe right now. Talk about all these little girls who are being raped. I don't think that's a made-up story. I think that's a real story. And the leadership of a lot of these European countries seems paralyzed or wrong, and they're letting their people be hurt. And I think I reached a conclusion several years ago that what happens in Europe will hit us like a wave coming across the Atlantic. And we got to be paying attention to Europe, because that movement seems to come here and it's going to impact us negatively. And, here we are. When I talk to you next week, it'll be March. So the first quarter, we're almost to the end of the first quarter of the second year of the Trump administration. And that means that the time is really limited to get anything done. Because honestly, I think it's likely, with history as the guide, that the Republicans will not control the House next year. So if you believe you're right, sincerely, and you're not just playing politics, and you don't want to just stomp on other people, you actually believe you're correct, and you want to make sure that freedom survives. Not just the Republican Party, not just your political prospects going forward, but that these fundamental core beliefs that I thought we could all agree on, that those things survive: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom to earn a living and negotiate your own wage and keep your own money without it being taken away from you. These things that made America different and so attractive to people from around the world. If you want those things to survive, how can you miss this window? I would break every tradition in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate in order to codify this, because then you get another 2 years, assuming Trump signs the legislation, you get another 2 years to fight to keep it in place. And then you got to win in 4 years. Or you wind up with what we just discussed with Bill, what's happened in Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin largely was able to hold the line, but one lost election, and the Democrats come in and undo everything. I mean, if you want to be free, it's going to be a battle. I would rather it be an intellectual battle and a political battle than a violent battle in the streets. And one of the concerns I've got is that that's where we're headed, is to violence in the streets. That's going to be bad for all of us. Let's not let that happen. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Producer Dan joins me for the wrap-up of the show on this Friday on the Reid Revolution. Welcome back on this Friday, the Reid Revolution, for the final segment of our program. Producer Dan always joins us. How are you today?
Feel Good Friday.
Is it a Feel Good Friday?
I don't know. It doesn't feel like it.
Oh, you mean just
we're talking about some heavy stuff today. But happy Friday, everybody. But yeah, it's
Well, yesterday I did feel good. I went and spoke to a Turning Point USA group at Atlee High School. They've just started there, and the students asked good questions, and they seemed engaged. And I kind of told them about my career and And, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about the high taxes that the Democrats have proposed and the gerrymandering. I know they don't want to be hyper partisan there, but I, felt like if this is political education, they need to know that. But I felt good that there were high school students who wanted to be engaged and discuss these issues. I think there were one or two people who might not have agreed with me. That's fine. I'm happy to engage in the conversation without it being ugly. That's okay. I'm used to that. Talk show host, TV reporter, political person, I can do that.
I grew up in a family where, far from not talking about philosophy or politics or religion or anything else like that, we always talked about those things, because to me that's the way that you avoid having bad ideas. It's to let's talk these things out in a respectful, polite manner, but better to figure out whether what you think makes sense than just not talk about it and just go on believing something that's absurd.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't talk to your kids about it, somebody's going to, and guess what? They're going to win. They're going to indoctrinate and brainwash their kids. So if you think you're right, and you think you're grounded, and you have a hope for preserving the society, or you hope the society will metamorphosize into something that's even better, you should have that conversation. I guess that applies to liberals too, although they seem to be more interested.
When you were talking to Bill, you said exactly as I was thinking. You said the same thing I was thinking, which is, this is the second time we're dealing with this.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
Gosh, it really is frustrating that here we have this golden opportunity. Who would have thought that President Trump would become the second person in history to be a non-consecutively serving president? My goodness, he's back. We have the branches again. We have a favorable legislature. We have a favorable executive, and what have we done with it? It's just the leftists don't waste these opportunities. We waste them seemingly all the time.
Great point, Dan. Look what Abigail Spanberger has done, and look what the Democrats have done. We'll see what laws are actually on the books at the end of this General Assembly session. But they didn't arrive in Richmond going, oh, wow, we ran as
Let's
moderates.
be careful.
Let's be
respectful.
Let's not run a bunch of we want tax increases, but let's not do those tax increases. Now, hell no. They showed up in Richmond and said, we're jamming this stuff through. And you know why I know that it was calculated? They waited to put the bills in until the new year because they didn't want a lot of public relations news attention after the election in December. They wanted to get to January when everybody's kind of hungover from Christmas and the new year and they're not paying attention, and they just wanted to throw this stuff into the mix, and they figured they could get away with it. And I don't think that's worked as well as they wanted to, largely because people like me, and there are some others, have raised Cain about it. But to your point, they're not wasting the opportunity. They're going to go for broke right out of the gate.
Well, not that anybody watching or listening is under the misconception that I think this is somehow President Trump's fault, because I don't. My problem is with the legislature. The legislature has been the roadblock.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
each time. It's like, come on, guys, let's go. They're just a failure to understand
some of these people go to Washington, Dan, and they think that they have been sent there because they're geniuses or they're so brilliant. And I think I'm a genius. I think I'm brilliant. But you got to know when you're on a team and when you're playing tennis, right? Are you playing tennis or are you on a team? And if you're playing tennis, it's all about you. But if you're on a team, it's not all about you. It's about the team advancing, and you got to do your job. Even if you could do the other job, you got to do your job, what's right in front of you, what you've been assigned to do, your position you need to follow. And I think that a lot of these guys in the Republican Party, maybe this is a good thing. They're very, very principled, good to be principled, but you don't get to set that stage now. You've got a leader in President Trump, whether you like him or not, and quite frankly, I think he's pushing for issues that you've been talking about for 20 years. Put your own ego aside and put your own reelection aside, quite frankly, and get this done now. If you don't get returned to the House of Representatives in November, but you have successfully codified 10 important laws that preserve and protect America for another decade, I'll be the one to say it. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you're not coming back, and I'm glad you did what you did, and that is a price we're willing to pay. And it's nothing compared to the 18-year-old kid who goes off to, in theory, fight for his country. He doesn't get to decide where he goes or what. Oh, I don't like this assignment. No, you're going. You're fighting for the country.
Right.
They die for the country, and we all tell them, oh, wow, you really sacrificed for the country. This is a wonderful thing. Well, you know what? If you're not getting killed, we've sent you here to accomplish these 5 or 6 fundamental issues, address these issues. I need you to do that, even if the end result is that you don't get returned to Congress.
Yeah, well, I'm hardly the first person to point this out, but the very thing that is the strength of the right, its individualistic spirit is also the challenge.
It works against us.
Yeah, and vice versa with the left. The left is very collectivist, both in substance and style. So they all kind of circle the wagons and stick together, and that
discipline
becomes
each other.
the challenge. Yeah, yeah.
If you step out of line, they will discipline you, and I think we're disinclined to do that. Although when it comes to hitting the magic number to codify something, that's kind of
we have more independent thinkers. We do, and that's to our credit and to our disadvantage.
Yeah. All right. So while we're here, there's breaking news that NASA has delayed the Artemis moon landing mission. What is it? 2026. So this is 2028. I will tell you right now. I'm a big space person. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a math person. I'm a talker, as you can tell. So it's weird that I'm so interested. Oh, like here behind me. This is a little piece of foil that was on the Apollo 11 mission.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? And it's encased in lucite. And I just think that the landing on the moon, we are so unimpressed by things these days. Think of all the people who lived on the planet, who looked at the moon, and all of the civilizations that used the stars as things that were guiding lights, literally. And we don't even look at it anymore. We got light pollution. We don't care about it. And to me, that moon landing. Oh, and here's the flag that flew on Columbia before it blew up. That was that flag was on the first launch of Columbia.
Launch. Yeah, what was
which
it? 1981.
Then later disintegrated. Yeah, let's see.
I think 81.
I think it was 81. Yeah, April 14th, 1981. Anyway, I got these things and I put them up on the wall to kind of keep me looking up instead of looking at the garbage in front of me. Keep looking up. Look, what are the great things that you would like to accomplish, that you want your civilization to accomplish? And I think this is one of them. And one of the things that makes me so angry is that somewhere along the line, we started to buy this garbage from the left that grand buildings didn't matter. Let's just slap something up and we'll take care of everybody. Well, that's how you get miles and miles and miles of garbage apartments like in Moscow that just suck the life out of the society and the individual human. That brutalistic look is awful. Brutalism is awful, and that mindset that I'm going to take from you, Dan, so that I can take care of these people over here.
Rob Peter
these
to
people
pay
over
Paul.
here these people need to take care of themselves. And we create a society in which they can do that. Great societies don't feed and clothe their people. Great societies create a system where the people can do that themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an important distinction. And we have pissed away all of our resources on the welfare state. And I would actually argue in many ways we've declined as a society because we're no longer
100%. Absolutely.
We're no longer looking at these huge goals and potential achievements. And even the medical achievements that we used to have. I question that these days because I think that a lot of the medical achievements are about creating patients for life and generating revenue for companies rather than solving the plagues of humanity. Maybe I'm being too negative about
Well,
that.
I mean, that's certainly the
I don't
case
know.
with the trans movement. I mean, if you're a trans patient, you're welcome to lifetime medical
Yeah,
care.
well, that's part of the reason those hospitals are on board with it.
Yeah,
It's
I think
gotta
so.
be.
I
It's
mean,
awful.
yeah, it's
They
but,
found an excuse to create patients for life. And even though anybody with any brain would look at it and go, this is horrific, somehow they've convinced themselves that this is okay, along with the radical LGBT crazies who I just can't, I'm not going to stand up for them. I'm not going to do it. Anyway, so that worries me when I see that they're putting it off to 2028, this moon landing. How did we land on the moon in 69? And here we are in 2028, and we just don't seem to have, we can't replicate that? That should concern you. And it's something that's a little more simplistic, and I don't want to burn up all our time on this, but I've had people who are architects and builders who have told me when I've been on these trips to the grand cathedrals and the great buildings that are centuries old, we couldn't do this today. We don't know how they did it. I mean, I guess maybe you could rig it up, but with the tools that we've got, you could create something that's a replica, but they don't know how, and they don't have the artisans and the skill set to do what people centuries ago did. Now, of course, you want to advance. You don't need to hold on to everything, but that tells me something that our focus has been wrong in many ways.
A couple of people commenting in the text line here, the chat. Any questions whatsoever about the veracity of the moon missions?
Not
the
for
moon
me.
landing?
Not
Okay.
for me. I don't. I don't. Just because I've been around. I went down to Cape Canaveral and watched a space shuttle launch and talked to a lot of the astronauts. I just don't think. Listen, if there's a small group of people, I wouldn't put anything past a small group of people to lie and fabricate and try to pull something over on folks. I just don't think that's the case with NASA. Maybe they've wasted money. That may be a legitimate. I just don't think that's the case with them. I think that would almost be impossible with all the people who were involved in that project. And the people who died, tried to get to the moon. I just don't buy it. I can't really be mad with conspiracy theorists who are very skeptical of everything. I mean, I think it's awful that we're in a place where there are people who have to second guess everything that they're told by the government, by the media. Look what happened with COVID. I started out kind of believing, no, the doctors aren't going to lie. And then I went to some of my own doctors, and they said, John, good for you not taking this COVID shot. And I said, yeah, but at the front, you all are pimping it out like we have to. It's insurance. It's it's a part of the network that we're in. We're not allowed to tell anybody not to take it. But they had heard me on the radio asking questions, which listen. If you
wish to
won't
goodness
take
I never
questions,
had.
you wish you hadn't taken it.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
you said you had a headache the other day. You
yeah,
think that's
I've
because of
suffered
COVID shots?
debilitating migraines ever since taking those shots. And
you think that's what it was?
One came on like a bolt of lightning on Wednesday.
Now, why do you think that was the COVID shot, Dan?
Because I didn't have that problem beforehand, and I started having it immediately afterward.
Did anything else change?
It was
in
a
your
side
life?
effect of the shot. No, not really. I mean, everything else. I like most people had side effects after the shots, including chills and such. I mean, I was down for the count for a couple days after the second shot in particular, and of course everybody's, oh, that's normal, everything's gonna be fine, this, that, and the other. I'd gotten medical advice to go ahead and take it. I was deeply skeptical, but somebody I trust, without going into further details, had said, it's safe, go ahead and take it, you'll be fine. a lot of pressure from work and other such places.
Oh, I know.
You better get this, or else you're not going to be able to work for us anymore. This, that, and the other. And yeah, no, I just wish to goodness I hadn't gotten it, because like I said, this migraine came on like a bolt of lightning about 5 minutes after the show on Wednesday. And
I'm just telling you, Dan,
in bed.
Those
for the next
those stories are all over the place, and I just don't think anybody cares. They don't cover it. There's a guy who lives down the street from me, right here at my house. Good-looking guy, family man.
I think you've told me the story, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mentioned it on the radio a couple of
Yeah.
times. I don't want to cause him or his family any trouble, but he was threatened with his job. He's like, "You're going to take this," and he had the doctor write a note saying, despite the fact that the guy's a big muscle guy and looks super fit, his body isn't going to respond well to this. We already know that. I guess he'd already had a problem with a vaccination. And I would see him around the neighborhood. We'd talk about it. I was like, "Man, is there any way you can not take it?" And I never tell people to lie. I came as close to that as I've ever been in my life during the COVID vaccine stuff. Like, this is the intensity and the hostility and the viciousness and the vindictiveness is making me think that there's something else going on here besides just we want to protect society. And if you can craft some excuse not to take it, and you're otherwise in good health, right? And I'm not. I told my mom and dad they needed to take it. They were in bad health. They were in their late 70s and had some medical problems. And I was convinced, and I think I still would be, that if they had gotten COVID, that would have killed them. So it's the risk analysis.
Yeah, you got to weigh the costs and benefits. Yeah, exactly.
But not for somebody in their 20s or 30s or 40s who's in great health. And this poor guy, you see him today. I mean, still super nice guy and everything, but you can tell it's taken a toll on him. It's really done damage to him. So when you said you had the headache the other day, that worried me.
Yeah. Well, back to this concept of conspiracy theorizing. Look, I mean, the last 10 years, I think it's fair to say, have been very eye-opening, especially for people who are right-leaning. I mean, to see the way that the government and the media have lied about Donald Trump, to see the way that they lied to us during COVID, to see the way that they lied to us about inflation, you just name it, about the 2020 election. We all know that no matter what the truth is, we haven't really quite heard it from the major media or the government about the 2020 election.
And then they've tried very deliberately to silence other people. Remember when we were at the radio station? I mean, you might not have been there when I was kind of in a little bit of a fight. Like, I had doctors on who were not for the COVID vaccine. And to their credit, the management of the station did not fire me over it. But I said, listen, my goal is to have people on who are credible. I'm not having just some random wacko who's drunk at night coming on telling us their opinion. Who cares what that person thinks? But if I have medical doctors,
I think I can think of a couple immediately who would have been guests,
are not on board with this, why would we silence them? Why wouldn't we let them make their case? And do you think the audience is that stupid that they won't be able to discern what's real and what's not, or at least raise the question so that they
can getting a second opinion after a bad diagnosis?
Yeah. I mean, you want to go to somebody who you think knows what they're talking about. I agree with that. But this monolithic, you will say only what we tell you to say, and you will only interview these people, and you will only allow that message. I mean, I'm shocked I didn't get fired.
Yeah, and think about that. Imagine if you went to a doctor, or if you were just talking to somebody. I mean, imagine if you came to me about some legal matter or whatever else, and I just said, well, whatever you do, don't talk. You do not talk to anybody else about this. You are not to go to anybody else. You better take my word for this.
You'd say, no, wait a minute. Why?
Exactly. Hold on. Now I definitely want to talk to somebody else about this. So it's like, I mean, if you have the confidence of your convictions and your conclusions, say, go ask somebody else. Here is my argument. Here are my facts. Here are the conclusions that I'm drawing, that I'm inferring from those facts. If somebody else can point out where I'm wrong, good luck. But yeah, go for it. Try to find somebody else who can explain this to you differently or better than I can. Yeah. But we've been lied to. We've been had. There's no doubt we have been lied to in a big way. I've been lied about by the government without getting into details, and I don't appreciate it. So I know that these people are liars.
Yeah, once it happens to you, once you've been abused by your own government, you do.
Yeah, I really don't appreciate during tax season when I have to pay taxes to these fools.
That's why a lot of black citizens who I think are hostile, especially in a certain age. Now, if you're 25, I don't want to hear it. I mean, give me a break. The whole world has been rigged for you. But if you're my parents' age, if you're Doug Wilder, I am interested in your perspective because I think you lived in a different society than the one we live in today. It's so weird that this younger generation is somehow personalized everything that's ever happened in America that was wrong for someone else. But, they're taking personal offense to it. And guess what? They're supposed to benefit from it. You're supposed to make the past right by doing what they want to benefit them. Ugh, how gross, how disgusting can you be to have that type of mindset? Listen, I wanted to bring up a couple of other issues for the people who are watching us here in Central Virginia who remember me from the radio. Look, this CarMax Park, which is where the Flying Squirrels, the minor league baseball team, is going to play. Glad they built the ballpark. I love having baseball. I would go to the Nats games when I lived in Washington, went to Yankees games up in New York. Baseball is a great American tradition, the great American pastime. I want it to be here in Richmond. We had the Richmond Braves here for the longest time. That's a great tradition. They built, I don't like the stadium, to be honest with you. Maybe when I actually visit it in person, I'll be more impressed. It's a pretty boring, low profile. I mean, it could be an office park from what I've seen when I go by. There's nothing that says, wow, this is a landmark destination.
I don't even see it from the highway. I like when I drive by as safely as I can, as I can glance over to see. Yeah, I can see the diamond, but I can't. It's like, where's the new thing?
It's like everything else. Cheap. Slap something up that, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad it's built because I predicted it wouldn't be built. So I was wrong about that. Right. They did build it. But here's the point of this. And this is, if you're not in Richmond, I know you don't care, but it is another little piece of evidence that Democrat cities are just mismanaged. So you've got the baseball team, which is kind of privileged and spoiled, I think. I mean, everybody bends over backwards to take care of these athletic teams, and I find that to be kind of ridiculous. As much as I'm not a sports fan, so I'm not going to be at these things all the time, but I recognize the cultural benefit of having them here, and I do think it's exciting. So, okay, I'm on board with it. And then we all give them tax money and tax breaks and act like, we're doing something great for society. I don't think you're rich people. Go ahead and you build your own damn stadium. Dan and I are having to build this project with our own money and our own time. You do the same thing, especially if you've got $100 million in the bank. But anyway, here they are at that stadium, and they still haven't worked out the financing deal, and they still haven't closed everything. And the season starts in April. I mean, it's just it is another reason why I would caution against governments getting involved in this kind of entertainment project. Mm-hmm. You guys build your own stuff, and we'll cheer you on, and we'll fix the roads out front so that people can get there. We'll provide support services where appropriate, but these deals never seem to work out as you expect them to. And I just saw that the other day, and I was like, here we go. It's still, at least they got it built. Good for them for getting it built, but it's still not done right. And then you have projects that aren't entertainment ventures, like this office building that was supposed to be built at Virginia Commonwealth University, and some dummy thinks it's okay to put a clause in the contract that if they don't build it, that they'll give up $75 to $100 million in tax money. And then guess what? They didn't build it, and they lost all that money, and no one has been disciplined for it. The one guy who got fired was the guy who warned about that clause, the whistleblower. He got fired.
This is a bad idea.
And the
What are we
president
doing?
of ECU, this Michael Rao guy, he's still there. No one ever brings it up. I mean, I would really like to know what kind of job you get where you can lose that kind of money and no one gives a damn about it. Because I've never worked in that situation. For God's sake, if I lost my corporate credit card and had to report it as stolen or lost, you know, I was in HR like, how reckless and irresponsible are you to lose the corporate credit card? Well, have there been charges? No, but it's the point of the matter. Okay, yeah, it's the point of the matter. And in this case, you lost 75 to $100 million in tax money, and no one at the General Assembly has a problem with it. This is kind of a knock on Governor Youngkin. He didn't raise hell about it either. If I'd been a Republican governor, that's a winning issue. So I've never
one person
understood.
really did, at least
Doug Wilder.
Yeah, at least one former official.
Doug Wilder was mad about
Governor
it.
Wilder.
He had an
our
axe to
friend.
grind with the guy, but I mean, it's a legitimate concern. These projects are out of control, and I'm telling you, when the country is $39 trillion in debt, and Virginia, fortunately, on paper looks like we're in good shape, but when the federal money isn't plugged in to the equation, which I think is coming. That federal money's not going to be there, at least not for everything that you expect it to be. We're going to be in trouble because we've grown our own government too quick and too fast and too big. And who can throw away $75 million and nobody cares? It's weird. Gavin Newsom may wind up being the Democrat nominee for president. And I think that's why everybody is paying such close attention to him. And he keeps stepping in it and making stupid statements and stupid judgments. I used to think he was pretty polished. I didn't agree with him on anything, but I used to think he was pretty polished. Maybe he's reached an age where he's losing it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I thought.
Well, that was the cue to throw some of this stuff up.
Oh, okay. Oh, you want me to? Okay. Well, should I add the context with the clip from last weekend when he was talking?
If you want
about,
to, you've got it.
Yeah,
right
let me
there.
throw that up.
I think people have seen it, but maybe you haven't.
Yeah, but it's worth resurrecting here. So
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you.
Oh.
You know, I'm a 960 SAT guy.
I know.
Insulting.
And and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940.
I'm
Literally,
stupid
oh
too,
my
just like
gosh.
black people is what he's saying. How
You've
crazy
never
and
seen me
offensive is that?
read a speech
Oh my
because I
gosh.
cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
These national Democrats are so racist, and they don't even know it.
They
don't even
they
know
don't
it.
fear a media that will call them out.
And it's a condescending attitude.
But people have come up with some interesting memes. Here was one.
No,
that,
so let's show.
Yeah,
this.
so we have this one here. Gavin Newsom in the car. I had a hard time finding him at first. He's behind the driver on the left there with the hot sauce and
with the hot
I know.
sauce. So we're
You
playing
may not
all
be able
the
to recognize him
stereotypes.
very easily. I had a hard time myself, but yeah, he's there. And then we had of course when Gavin was a member of the cast on Good Times.
Good Times.
That was.
I'm just like you. I own a winery, and I'm one of the richest people in California, but I'm just like you. I mean, it's so insulting. It's so insulting. Meanwhile,
Oh,
if
my
you dare
goodness.
question some of the spending for welfare programs, and you're a Republican, you're done. You're labeled as a racist, and you were completely obliterated from the conversation. And I think it's a legitimate conversation to have, but and fortunately, enough people, I'm one of them. Enough people are waking up to it, saying, "You can call me whatever you want. Call me whatever you want." Everybody knows what you're saying isn't true. I mean, look what they tried to do to me last year: racist, Nazi, pervert, weirdo. I mean, they just didn't stop for months, and that was one reason, Dan, and you know this because you know me long enough, why instead of running away, I ran towards the cameras and the
Right.
reporters. Like, you know what? Try it. you blankety blank people. I'm going to stand right here and answer every question, and I'm going to deal with this head on, because the second I retreat, you win and you get to label me as something, and I refuse to do that. And that's the only thing. The only thing I think they can push back is bold people who just say what you want to say. I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you. All right. Did we have anything else that we wanted to? I thought wait a minute. You know, they defaced the statue of Winston Churchill. I sent that to you last
right.
night.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
This beautiful statue of Winston Churchill. If you've been to the Houses of Parliament in London, remember I was there for the Queen's funeral and then for the coronation of King Charles III, and then I went back for Hugh Shakespeare's wedding, which was in the Houses of Parliament. Right across the street is this really impressive statue of Winston Churchill. And this just shows you what we're up against in Virginia and in the United States and in Europe. They've labeled Winston Churchill as Zionist war criminal. What? What are you talking about? Zionist? Well, what are you talking about? We should have hammered the hell out of these people back in 2020 when they first started doing this stuff, because the cultural heritage of the country and of the West is being destroyed right in front of our faces. There are things like this where a statue of Winston Churchill is defaced. I assume they can clean it. It's not going to be that way all the time. But the idea that you would do that, you should be harshly punished for that type of graffiti and damage to public property. And then the story that no one is talking about, and they haven't since the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral, is that these Christian churches in Europe are being, I'm just going to say it, they're being deliberately set on fire. There is no way that every church
they're just spontaneously combusting. Another one just caught fire. How did it happen?
The electric units in all these churches suddenly start to catch fire, or there's always a guy smoking a cigarette.
That's right.
Who set something up. Baloney. There is a movement to do damage to the cultural heritage, and in some cases with the churches, it's the contemporary heritage, contemporary engagement that people have, and no one wants to cover it. And if I were still an investigative reporter, especially if I was at a network, I would be asking for money. Send me over. Give me 2 weeks to go over and interview people and to try to get the documents so that we can see what actually happened here. Because I'm just telling you, this isn't happening in a vacuum, and we got to stand up against it.
Well, our friend and frequent guest, Andy Bernstein, just wrote a new essay about the unholy alliance, if you will, between communists and Muslims.
Islamists and the radical Islamists.
And I think we ought to get him back on the show to talk about it. I was going to tell you after the show off the air, but given that this has come up, I think it's certainly a germane topic given everything that we've talked about in the last few weeks here, and it doesn't look as though this issue is going away, to say the least. But he wrote a really interesting essay for Capitalism Magazine about
all right.
this.
Well, we'll start booking next week.
Yeah,
and
because I think he would have a lot to say about this.
Uncomfortable.
Maybe it's time to be uncomfortable.
I would rather be uncomfortable talking about it now than live in a society that has been completely trashed, and we can't identify where our principles are anymore. We need to identify those now and hold on to them. So, all right, Dan, I will see you tonight. You're still coming?
Yes,
you're bringing guests?
Absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
I will be there.
Dan will be there at the Virginia Forum at the Glen Allen Cultural Arts Center. How about we give away one more pair of tickets for the VIP,
let's do it.
and for the speech by Jamie Franklin. The speech is at 7 o'clock tonight at the Glen Allen Cultural Arts Center, the VIP reception right about 6. So if you are the first person to send me an email at thereidrevolution@gmail.com, thereidrevolution@gmail.com, Dan will handle that and make sure that you are on the list to be able to
just look for me. Just
tonight.
scream out my name or something. Just say, scream, producer Dan, producer Dan.
I'm kind of excited about this. I think Jamie is kind of an up-and-comer, and when you look at the data about these elections, there are a lot of college-educated women who are not going with Republicans, and it's shocking. Jamie's trying to push back on that, and it's not like she went to, no offense, it's not like she went to Liberty or to Hillsdale or something. She went to University of California at Berkeley. So you can survive that indoctrination camp and still be a profound, articulate
What did you say its
conservative.
nickname was? What was it? What was the nickname?
We used to go, when I lived in L.A., we called it UC Berserkly.
Berserkly, that's okay.
Because even back then, that was where, I don't know if you remember this, that was where the naked guy went to school. You remember this? He refused
I think it's
to
where
wear
Steelers
clothes.
quarterback Aaron Rodgers went to school, I think. But yeah, no, the naked guy. Yes,
The
I do
naked
remember
guy.
that.
He
Yeah, I
would
do
not
remember
wear
naked
clothes.
guy.
He
Yeah,
refused.
I know what you're talking. Yeah, he would literally just go around naked. Yeah,
And-
not just
and-
one day. It was like sort of all the time, right?
Okay, so you go streaking across the lawn at UVA. That's one thing. Streaking with a mask on or something. Oh, look, a naked guy. That's funny. This guy was going to class and sitting in the chairs naked, and they didn't have the guts to say, "Excuse me, no shoes, no shirt, no service. You got to put on underpants too." I mean, they're so permissive and weak that they won't enforce the basic rules. Well, that's where she went to school. I don't think the naked guy was there when she was there, but I'll be curious to talk to Jamie, and I'll get to ask her some questions, and you can send me some questions to ask her too. That's tonight at the Virginia Forum, and then we will be back on Monday morning for the Reid Revolution. Thank you, Dan. I hope you have a great week. Give us a thumbs up and a like and a follow on Facebook and Twitter, X, and all of the social media platforms. And I hope you have a great weekend.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy.